And welcome to part 6 of the Lotus Mandala Duster tutorial. In parts 1 through 5, we covered how to crochet the main body of this circular garment. As you can see, it's pictured here without the sleeves. 1 through 5 covers the main body, and part 6 that we're doing here is going to cover these really long, billowy, dramatic pointed sleeves that I've put on this garment. They're really fun and flowy, so let's get started and I'll show you how to do that. You're going to need a 550 hook, the same hook you used for the main body of the garment, and the same yarn that you're using. As you can see here, we've got the sleeve. The edge of the garment is on the right. We're going to attach the yarn where the armpit would be. So this bottom part here is where we're going to attach our new yarn. Then we're going to work in a circular fashion into these chain spaces that I'm pointing out. We're going to work into the other side of this circle where the V stitches are, and then we're going to work into the bottom part of this foundation chain where we put the armhole in round 21. So starting here, we're at the side of the V stitch on round 21. It's the double crochet just before it opens up into the armhole. So we're going to put our hook under the side of that double crochet in that V stitch and join our yarn. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to double crochet into that same space. If you're working a small, you'll work 1 more double crochet. If you're working a large, you'll work 2 more double crochet into that space. So you're either going to have 2 double crochet or 3 double crochet in that space. So that's the side. Next, we're going to work into the chain space that V stitch is worked into, so the very next available chain space. And since I'm doing a small size sleeve, I'm going to work 2 into each of the next chain spaces. I think if you're working a small as written, there's going to be 9. I modified, so there'll be I think 1 or 2 more that just work either 2 for small or 3 for large double crochets into each of those chain spaces. And once we've worked all the way around on the chain space side of the armhole, see we've got 2 double crochets in each of those chain spaces. Now we're going to continue working. We're going to go back into the side of the V stitch on the other side of the armhole and treat it just like a chain space. It'll get 2 or 3 double crochet. Switch the sweater around here. And here we've reached the part of the armhole with the foundation chain. Oh, after I work these 2, sorry. Work the 2 into the side of the double crochet of the V stitch, and now we're working into the foundation chain. So on the bottom of the foundation chain, we have all these chain stitches, and there's little bumps. We've already worked into the top 2 loops of the chain stitches when we worked over them in round 22, and now we've got these bumps on the underside. And we can insert our hook into those bumps in order to work our stitches for the armholes. It's a little tight. We're going to work a double crochet into each chain stitch, and I'll show you. Drawing up that loop into that hole leaves a pretty small little strand of yarn for that to attach to. So what I actually like to do for my armholes is go under the foundation chain itself between the double crochets on the other side. And that doesn't make a difference except for that it's sturdier. It's a little bit easier and quicker to work that way, and I just think it looks nice. As long as you have the same amount of stitches per your foundation chain as there are foundation chain stitches, then you should not have a problem here by switching that up. I just think it's easier to do it underneath the foundation chain. It's sturdier, it looks better. The number of double crochets you should have after doing this will be in the written pattern as well. If you've modified, again, just make sure it's as many chain stitches as you had, as many double crochets as you have chain stitches. And to join step 1 for the sleeve, we're just going to slip stitch in the 3rd chain of the beginning chain 3. I'll spread it out here, and you can see that we've got a round of just solid double crochets surrounding the armhole of the duster, starting at the armpit, working in the direction you normally would. Okay, and here we are ready for step 2 of the sleeves. We've got a chain 4. That chain 4 counts as the first double crochet plus chain 1. Step 2 is really easy. We just double crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch all the way around. So I've got our first double crochet in chain 1. I'm going to skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, or just here, chain 1, skip a stitch. So I'm going to skip that next stitch, and then the next stitch I'm going to work a double crochet, and then I'll chain 1, skip another stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next stitch. And we're going to do this all the way around. And here I am at the end. You can see I've got my round of double crochet, chain 1. I think I've got 1 extra there. My numbers didn't work out at some point, and so didn't skip a full stitch at the end, but it's okay as long as you just remember to put the same amount of stitches on the other sleeve. We should be all right. I'll show you how to reduce spaces here in just a sec. Okay, so now that I've got this completed, I'm going to do, oops, I got to do the right join. So to join step 2, we're going to yarn over. We do not have a chain 1 right now. We're going to yarn over and replace that chain 1 with a half double. So yarn over, insert your hook into the 3rd chain of the beginning chain 3, which, if you're watching this, can be tricky. Got it. Okay, so work the half double by pulling up a loop and drawing through all loops on the hook. That half double crochet stands in for the chain 1 space in the final repeat, so that your hook is above the half double crochet. We just treat that half double crochet as if it were a chain space. So you're already worked into a chain space. You've got a chain 4 to stand in for the first double crochet plus chain 1. And in step 3, we're just going to repeat step 2. We're going to double crochet in the next space, chain 1, double crochet in the next space, chain 1, double crochet in the next space, chain 1, all the way around. Now that we're on the last 2 spaces of step 3, I'll show you how to reduce spaces real quick. This is a question that I've gotten a couple of times. If your sleeve needs to be tapered off, if you have like a wide shoulder and a slim arm, or the shoulders are just too big for any reason, we can work a double crochet 2 together across 2 spaces. And I've got one here. You just work a double crochet and leave the last loop on the hook. And then in the next space, work another double crochet and leave the last loop on the hook. And then draw through all 3 loops on the hook. And as you can see, that draws 2 double crochets together across 2 spaces, so that we've reduced the amount of chain spaces in your sleeve by 1 space. And go ahead and work our half double crochet join since we are at the end of the round. And you can do that reduction, that decrease across any spaces that you like, as many times as you like. If you just need to make your sleeve smaller, or taper it off. If you reduce the number of stitches in your sleeve from the written pattern, you will need to go and try it on and count your spaces out when it's time to center the elbow increase. But you need to do that anyway, honestly, because it's just better. Okay, so to start the next round, we're just going to repeat step 3 until your sleeve has reached the elbow. For me, that's 23 rows or so. It kind of varies depending on when I size down a hook, because I do size down once I've gotten past the shoulder part of the sleeve. It helps keep the sleeve snug. It also reduces the length that I'm getting so that I can fit more rows in without making it too long, which just gives the sleeve kind of enough heft and weight to support that bell that we're going to put in, but it doesn't really matter. You don't have to size down. A lot of this sleeve is written so that you can customize to the degree that you like it. Okay, so here we are. We've got our rounds of repeats of step 3. I've sized down my hook. The hook on screen is a 4.5 millimeter hook. As you can see, here I am. I've got this place marked. That little pink locking marker is where the sleeve falls at my elbow. And that is where we are going to place our increases in step 4. So I've chained, here, go back to the start. Actually, I'm going to work that decrease one more time, just to get it on camera again. So I'm going to put a decrease in the last 2 spaces of the sleeve, just like I showed you a minute ago. It's just 2 double crochets, each one with the last loop left on the hook, and then draw through all 3 loops. And then if you're at the end of the row, go ahead and make your half double crochet join just like you normally would. Excuse me while I sip coffee. Okay, so for step 4, we're going to chain 4 to count as the first double crochet plus chain 1. We're going to double crochet and chain 1 in each space around, just like in the step previously, until we reach the point where we have that locking stitch marker. That space is going to take an increase. And I'll show you how to do that. You want to have some stitch markers handy. 3 or 4 should do it. So in the space with the increase, we're going to work double crochet, chain 1 4 times in the same space. Working at double crochet, chain 1 4 times creates 3 central spaces. There's 2 spaces. Here's our third. We're going to work that double crochet one more time into that space. Whoops. And then chain 1 one more time. So we've got 4 double crochets with 3 spaces worked. And the central space of those 3 spaces will now be your next center of increase. So we're going to move this marker to the middle space of the increase we just worked. And then we'll finish the round with the double crochet, chain 1 in each space. As you can see, our little increase there. So for step 4, we just repeat that same round, placing increases in the middle space of the increase of the previous round. Here we are at the middle space again. There we go. So this is our increase from the previous round. In that center space, we're going to do 4 double crochet plus chain 1s. There, I've got my increase placed in the center space of the previous increase. So I'm going to go ahead and double crochet, chain 1 across the rest of the row, placing 1 per space. There's our increase point. That center space is where we're going to put our next locking stitch marker, and we're just going to repeat that process for several more rows. I think the pattern says until it reaches your forearm. Let me just move this marker. I typically do 11 rows on a regular sleeve. I will not be doing 11 rows on this one. Here we are. I think I did 5 before I moved on to step 5. In the interest of scooting this video along, but also because I just wanted to do shorter sleeves. The sleeves are very big, so they can be a little inconvenient, especially because I love to wear bell sleeves at pitch-in dinners. So they always end up dragging through the food. Whoops. I'm making these ones a little bit shorter, like a 3/4 length. So I've got 5 rows of step 4 on there before I move on to step 5. So in the 3 spaces of the previous increase, we are working 4 double crochet plus chain 1 each. So we've got 3 increase spaces from the previous row. This time in step 5, each of those spaces gets 4 double crochet plus chain 1. So there'll be 3 spaces with increases in them, one right after the other, centered around the increase center of the previous step. And I'll show you what that looks like all completed here in a moment. Just drink my coffee while I'm waiting for myself to finish this up on screen. There we go. Okay, so 3 increase centers across 3 spaces. And yes, this will look weird at first. It serves to really flare the sleeve out at a certain point, make it pointy and really flowy and dramatic. So we've got these 3 spaces, each with 4 double crochet plus chain 1s in between. And each of the center spaces of these 3 increases, so 1, 2, 3 in the second one, 1, 2, 3 in the second one, and 1, 2, 3 in the second one. We've got 3 spaces marked with our increase locking stitch markers, and that'll help us keep track for the next round. Meanwhile, we're going to double crochet plus chain 1 in every other space of the round to finish this part up. And here's what that looks like. I've got a really thin yarn. It's really flexible. If you are working with a thicker yarn, this will look weirder at first because it won't drape as well. I recommend not being shy about tugging at it to get it to look pointed and ruffly. And also, you know, once we work the later rounds, that will help flatten it and ruffle it in the right way. So here we are with step 6. We've reached our first of the 3 locking stitch markers for this round. We have 1 double crochet plus chain 1 in every other space, and in the first locking stitch marker space we're going to work 4 double crochet plus chain 1. So the same kind of increase we've been working in the increase spaces previously. So this is our first one. Remember, we've got 3, so I'm finishing off that. We've got an increase there. We're going to work a double crochet plus chain 1 in every space in between the increase center we just worked, this is hard to describe, and the next increase center. So that's why I'm getting it on video. Hopefully it's less confusing this way. So we have an increase, we have double crochet plus chain 1 in the next 3 spaces. We've reached our next marked space, so we're going to place an increase there as well. So double crochet plus chain 1 4 times. And again, we'll work 1 double crochet plus chain 1 in each of the next spaces in between the one we just worked and the next space marked with an increase marker. So that's 3 spaces, I think. 4, maybe 4. And once we've got to the next space with the marker, we'll work 4 double crochet plus chain 1. So just like with last round, we have 3 increase points. They're a little bit more spread out now. They've got chain 1s in between each of them. So we're continuing to form that dramatic bell sleeve flare. As you can see, I stretch it out at the increases and it's really beginning to form a point. And if you would like to repeat any step, it's possible. I tried to write this pattern so that you could customize, and if you wanted to, for instance, go even rufflier and more bell sleeve, you could move those stitch markers to the center space of the increases, just like I've done here. I've moved to those markers, and then you could repeat step 5 and do another round of increases centered at those markers. I'm not going to do that because I don't need these sleeves to be that big, but you could. So let's see where we are at. Step 7. We're just going to double crochet plus chain 1 in every space. No increases. We've already got plenty of increases. As you can see, I've just worked 1 double crochet plus chain 1 in every space to continue adding length to the sleeve. And repeat step 7 until you're a few inches away from where you want to end your sleeve. Again, I did 1 row of step 7 because I'm doing 3/4 length sleeves. So I would like them to be a little shorter. So I'm already moving on, and also it makes this video faster. At step 8, I'm joining a new color of yarn. I've just joined it into whatever stitch that I ended in last. Doesn't really matter that much. As long as you get, I believe this round starts in a space. So I've got 1 double crochet in the next double crochet, 2 double crochet in the next chain 1 space. So there's 1, 2, 1 double crochet in the next double crochet, 2 double crochet in the next chain 1 space. This round also does add a lot of stitches to help ruffle and flare the sleeve. If you'd like more flare, you can add more stitches per space. Shouldn't really need it though. Here we are at the end of step 8. I've got my solid round of double crochet, so I'm just going to join with a slip stitch in the beginning chain. Get my little strings out of the way so you can see this nice solid border we're forming. I'm going to add 1 more round of double crochet in step 9. So starting with a chain 3, I'm just going to double crochet in every stitch. Double crochet all the way around and join as normal with a slip stitch in the top of the beginning chain. Here's my 2 rows of double crochet. Join with my slip stitch. and cut and tie off. You can leave on, I like to change colors at steps 8 through 11 to add contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and change colors. Not that my colors are all that different from each other. This is a very beige garment. I don't mind. It's so very neutral and timeless looking. Okay, so chain 4 to start step 10. It counts as your first double crochet plus chain 1. And this round is just double crochet, chain 1, skip next stitch all the way around. So here I've got chain 4. Yes, 4, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, and so on and so forth all the way around. Now I'm actually going to do a half double crochet in this round instead of a double because I'm interested in keeping this sleeve short. Either way it works fine. And at the end of the round, to substitute that last chain 1, we'll just work a half double. Oh, no, we won't. We're going to join because I'm changing colors. If you're not changing colors, you can join with a half double, and therefore your hook will be positioned in the space to start the next round. But since I am cutting and tying off, it doesn't matter. Here I go. And finally, the last round of the sleeve, step 11, chain 1, single crochet in every stitch in every space. 1 in each stitch, 1 in each space, all the way around. Again, the sleeves are written in steps and not rows so that they're more customizable. You can repeat any row that you please to the extent that you like, so that more ruffle, less ruffle, more bell, less bell, border, no border. Here I am going to join this last round with a slip stitch and cut and tie off. But wait, there's more. I have to do the opposite sleeve. So here we are. I'm going to show what the sleeve looks like. Again, it's a little shorter than a normal sleeve that I would make for this, but it's got the same shape. This nice curving, flowy, dramatic line at the end of the bell with lots of ruffle. I designed this sleeve while watching Game of Thrones, and you can kind of tell. There we go. There's our line of increase. See the way that the increases form that pretty sleeve. And here's where we started at the beginning of the left. If we're facing the same direction, that's our left side. This is the right sleeve. And I like to begin at the armpit. But since we're working the opposite side, if we begin at the same place, we're going to have to work the first step backwards. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Since I'm a righty and I work in the direction of a right-handed crocheter, meaning that I work from right to left, I'm going to go in this circle a different direction than I went in the other circle. And so the first thing that I'm going to do after I put my crochets into the side of that V-stitch at the armpit is, instead of moving on to work the chain spaces, I'm going to work the side with the foundation chain first. And it's really just doing the exact same thing. Again, you can work into the chain stitches at the base, or you can work in between the double crochets underneath. See, the chain stitches at the base have that small, it's kind of a puny looking loop for a sleeve, so that's why I do it in between, because it looks sturdier. has more to hang on to, and the thread that holds it is not as thin. So again, I'm working the second half of those step 1 instructions first because I'm going in the opposite direction. You can start the sleeve at the shoulder and work it in the same sequence as it is written. It doesn't really matter, but I prefer to start at the armpit because it centers the seam underneath the arm for the first part. Here we go. You can see I've got my double crochets worked into the chain, and just like the last time, we're going to work into the side of the V stitch as well before moving on to the other half of the armhole, which, because it's mirrored, is in the chain stitches next. So I'm going to turn this around so I can work. See that round 21 V stitch? There's the side of that V stitch, the side double crochet is what we're working into. There's the chain stitch that V stitch occupies. That also gets worked into. Don't miss that one. You could skip it if you wanted a smaller sleeve, but the sleeves are pretty small as written. And then we move on to working our double crochets in each chain space. Oh, and here's a quick tip. Don't do what I'm doing on camera, which is to forget to change your hook size back to the original hook size when you start your second sleeve. I had to redo this part. So here we are at the end of the step 1 for the opposite sleeve. We're going to join with a slip stitch into the first double crochet of the round and chain 4 to start step 2. And from there you can just work the opposite sleeve in the same sequence that you worked the first sleeve. And then finally you will be done, completed. That's the Lotus Mandala Duster. That's the sleeve tutorial. There's ties in video 5 if you haven't added your front ties yet. I'm super pleased to have gotten this design on video finally. I've been meaning to for years. I'm so excited about the response that I've gotten, and I'm excited about doing more video series for you. If you have feedback, if you like my channel, please like and subscribe, and do tell me what you'd like to see next, because I'd love to hear it. Thanks.